Hello everyone, welcome back to MalStorm Gaming. My name is Malachi Gardner, and today we're going to be continuing our game of Marvel Champions. I hope you all enjoy the video.
Alright, so last week I had shown you guys how to play Marvel Champions, and then I took you through the first turn. So now, this week, we're just going to go through just right into the game. So let's start by looking at our hand. So first, we have Energy, which is a resource card. So on its own, it does nothing. It has the max 1 per deck little trait there, so you can only have one of those in our deck. And then it gives us 2 resources when we discard it, so that's what makes this card special. Next, we have Haymaker, which is an event that costs 2. Hero action, so again, just a little refresher, that means that we need to be in our hero form to play this card, which we are. We are Spider-Man right now. If we were in Peter Parker, we could not play that card. So it's an attack action, deal 3 damage to an enemy. So that's nice. It's very straightforward. We just do some damage. And again, that will give us 1 resource when we discard it. Next up, For Justice. It's another event that costs 2. It's another hero action. Thwart. Remove 3 threat from scheme. 4 threat instead if you pay for this card using a mental resource. So again, if you remember, last time I said that sometimes the symbol, the resource type, matters, and this is one of the rare instances that it does. So if we paid for it with 2 lightning bolt symbols, it would remove 3 threat. If, on the other hand, one of the 2 resources that we spent were a blue resource, then we'd remove 4 instead. So you can be a little bit more powerful if you pay for the right cards, or pay with the right cards. First Aid is an event that costs 1. Action, heal 2 damage from any character. So from any character, which would be a hero or an ally, we could remove 2 damage from it, which is nice. Strength, it's another resource with max 1 per deck, and when we discard this card, it gives us 2 resources, which is nice. Heroic Intuition, it's an upgrade that costs 2. Play under any player's control, max 1 per player. Your hero gets +1 thwart. So if we were playing a multiplayer game, I could play one of these on myself, and then later I could play one on someone else. So that's a way you can kind of help each other out. But again, I can only play it to my own character. Alright, so those are our cards. Oh, sorry, we have one more. Great Responsibility. It is an event that costs 0. Hero Interrupt. When any amount of threat would be placed on a scheme, you may take it as damage instead. So if 2 threat were to be placed on the scheme, we could play this card and actually take 2 damage instead of 2 threat be placed on the scheme rather, which could actually save us from losing the game. Because again, if 7 threat is placed on that scheme card, we lose the game. Alright, so now that we've looked at our cards, we can decide what we want to do. So if we look back at this player reference card, we can see what all we can do. So we can play cards, we can trigger and request actions, we can use basic attack, thwart, or recovery powers, we can change our form once per round, and then we can end our turn. So we can play cards, we can trigger and request actions. We have our helicarrier that we could use to reduce the cost of 1 card we play by 1. We cannot actually do our basic action because last turn we exhausted our character to defend, which prevented us from getting stunned and taking a bunch of damage, but now we can't do anything on our turn. We could still flip over to Peter Parker if we wanted to, but he'd remain exhausted. Alright, so let's see. Great Responsibility. We can't actually play it right now, but we could save it if we wanted to. Energy does nothing on its own. Alright, let's see. So I'm thinking about playing Heroic Intuition, because then we can remove more threat from the scheme with that enhanced thwart. So I'm going to discard this Strength card, and it'll give us 2 resources. So then we can put that in our discard pile, and then we can play Heroic Intuition. So that's put next to our character. Alright, next, I think it would be a good idea to try to play this Haymaker. So this is going to cost us 2. So let's exhaust our helicarrier, so we can turn that 90 degrees, and now this only costs 1. Then I'm going to discard Great Responsibility to pay for this card. So now we can do what it says. Since we're in our hero form, we can do 3 damage to an enemy. So we can put this in our discard pile, and then we can do 3 damage to the enemy. So now he just has 1 life in his first stage. So we're making good progress. Alright, next we have Energy, First Aid, and For Justice. I think what I would like to do is I'm going to discard Energy to play For Justice. So this is going to let us remove 3 threats from the scheme. Now, there's only 1 threat token on the scheme right now, so we can just remove that. The extra removal that we usually would have is just wasted, but it still makes sense to play that card because at the end of our turn, we're going to draw up to max. So it does make sense to remove all your cards if possible. Finally, we have First Aid that costs 1. So we actually can't play that because we have no more cards. Except we have not flipped yet. So I'm going to flip my character. So now I'm going to be Peter Parker. Again, I'm still exhausted, so I can't do anything. Or I can't exhaust my character again because it's already exhausted. But now we gain access to our Scientist ability, which says, resource, generate a mind resource, limit once per round. So with that resource, we can actually pay for First Aid, which lets us heal 2 damage from any character. So the character we're going to choose is our hero card, or character, rather. And so we're going to discard this card, and then we're going to gain 2 life. So now we have 10 hit points, which is our maximum. So we're back up to max. Then there is nothing else we can do because we have no more cards in our hand, and everything's exhausted that can be exhausted. So we're going to end our turn, and then we are going to ready all of our cards by turning them right side up. Then we're going to draw up to our hand size, which for Peter Parker is 6. So we're going to draw 6 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Alright, so we have our new 6 cards. We're going to set those aside, and now it's the enemy's turn. So the first thing it's going to do is we're going to gain 1 threat to the scheme. Next thing's going to happen if we consult this villain phase reference. The villain in each engaged minion activates once per player in player order. If you are in hero form, enemies attack you. If you are in alter ego form, the enemies scheme. So, since we are in our alter ego form, because we're Peter Parker, they are not going to attack us. Instead, they're going to scheme. So, what they're going to do is they're going to place threat tokens equal to their scheme value, which is 1, plus the boost card. So we're going to discard another boost card. So, Sandman is the card we discarded. And now, there actually are 2 of those symbols down there. Those are boost symbols. And so now, we're going to place threat tokens equal to the scheme value, plus the number of symbols down there. So 1 plus 2 is 3. So we're going to take a token worth 3 threat, and then we're going to place that on the card. Alright, now we're going to put this back. Alright, next we're going to deal an encounter card to each player, and then each player will reveal and resolve their encounter cards in player order, and then we'll pass the first player token. Alright, so we're going to look at this card. Advance, Treachery. When revealed, the villain schemes. Alright, so he's just going to do exactly what he just did and scheme again. So we're going to discard a card, and it's 2. Alright, so again, that's going to be another 3 placed on the scheme. More threat will be placed on the scheme. Now, that puts our threat up to 7, which, if you recall, means that we lose. But we have this card in our hand called Emergency. And I think that this is an emergency. So it says, it costs 0, it's an event, interrupt. When the villain schemes, reduce the amount of threat placed on a scheme by 1. So, 3 threat would be placed on a scheme, but we can actually play this card. It costs 0, so we're just going to discard it, and then we're going to reduce the amount of threat by 1. So now instead of there being 7 threat, there's only going to be 6. So just 2 is placed on there. So now we didn't lose, which is very good. So now it's back to our turn. We're going to look at our hand. So we have Genius, which is another resource card. So max 1 per deck, and it has 2 resource icons. So we can discard that for 2. Spider Tracer. So it's actually, we had one of these earlier. So this is an upgrade that costs 1. Attached to a minion, force interrupt. When an attached minion is defeated, remove 3 threat from scheme. So this would be really nice because we have so much threat on the scheme, but sadly, we do not actually have any minions in play to attach this to, so this is kind of useless. Enhanced Spider Sense. Here interrupt. When a treachery card is revealed from the encounter deck, cancel its when revealed effects. Oh man. So we actually could have played this card to cancel the effects of advance, but I did not look at my hand as I should have, and so now I actually can't play that card. But I could have canceled this ability from happening, but I did not. Alright, Nick Fury. So this is an ally, and this is the first time we've seen allies this game. So when we play an ally, we're going to place him in our play area, and then he's going to become like a weaker player. So he has stats just like we do. So he has a thwart and an attack, and then he has his life here. Once per turn, we can exhaust him to do one of these 2 actions, but if you notice that little symbol there, that little explosion symbol, that means that whenever he does that action, he's going to take 1 damage. So he is kind of like another hero we can use, except he's going to take damage every time you use him. So he's not going to be able to stay for the rest of the game, which is unfortunate. But they're still very powerful. And also, Nick Fury has an ability, so whenever we play him, he's going to do some sort of extremely powerful effect. So if we can, I would like to play him. He's very good. Next, we have Webbed Up. It's an upgrade that costs 4. Hero form only. Attached to an enemy. Max 1 per enemy. So we can play this when we're in hero form, and we can put it on any one enemy. So with our Spider Tracer, it says attached to a minion. So we can only attach it to a minion. When we attach it to an enemy, it can be attached to a minion or the villain, which in this case is Rhino. So that's good. Force Interrupt. When attached enemy would attack, discard Webbed Up instead, then stun that enemy. And if we remember from last week, what stun does is, the next time this character would attack, discard the status card instead. Essentially, what Webbed Up does is it allows us to prevent the monster from attacking 2 turns in a row, which is pretty good. Alright, so those are our cards. And again, we only have 5 because we discarded Emergency already. So let's see what we want to do. I think that it would be really cool to be able to play Nick Fury. So let's see how we can do that. Well, we have our Scientist resource. So that's 1. And then we could exhaust the Helicarrier to give us a second one. Effectively, it reduces the cost by 1. So we have 2, and then we need 2 more. So we can discard Genius. So that's our 4. So now we can play this card. And as a force response, after Nick Fury enters play, choose 1, remove 2 threat from scheme, draw 3 cards, or deal 4 damage to an enemy. Those are all really good, but I think right now we have so much threat on the scheme card, I think it'd be a good idea to remove 2 threats. So we're going to place them in front of us, and then we're going to move 2 threats. So now it goes down from 6 to 4. Alright, we have Spider Tracer, Enhanced Spider Sense, or Webbed Up. So we actually can't play any of these cards. So we don't have enough to play Webbed Up. Enhanced Spider Sense only happens on the enemy's turn, and we do not have a minion to attach the Spider Tracer to. So I'm actually seeing that what we should have done is discard Enhanced Spider Sense or Webbed Up. We should have discarded any of these 2 cards, probably these 2, and saved our Genius card. But oh well. So we've played our cards, everything we can do. We can't pay for anything else. So I'm just going to set those down. Alright, so I'm going to flip over to Spider-Man. And then I'm going to thwart. So I'm going to thwart and remove 1 threat, but I have my heroic intuition, so I can actually remove a second threat because my thwart is increased by 1. So I'm going to remove 2 threat from the scheme. So now it goes down from 4 to 2. Then I'm going to exhaust Nick Fury, placing 1 damage token on him to remove threat equal to his thwart, which would be 2. So now there is no threat on the scheme, which is a job well done. Then I'm going to ready all of my characters and cards. Then I can look at my hand. I'm actually going to discard these 2 cards, and it's not going to do anything, but I'm just going to place them in my discard pile, and I'm going to save this card. Then I'm going to draw up to my hand size, which for Spider-Man is 5, so I'm going to draw up to 5. Alright. Then it's the villain's turn, so we're going to do that. So we're going to place 1 threat on the scheme. He's going to attack us because we are in hero form. Alright, so we have our Spider Sense. When the villain initiates an attack against you, draw a card. So we get to draw a 6th card. Then he's going to attack us for 2 damage plus whatever he draws here. I'm going to exhaust Nick Fury to block the damage for us. So he does not have a defense value like we do. So we have a defense of 3. So every time we exhaust our character to defend, we're going to reduce the damage by 3. Nick Fury cannot do that. He takes the full brunt of the damage, which is still better than us taking it. So we're going to discard this card, and there are no boost icons on here, so Nick Fury is going to take 2 damage, which is a total of 3 damage on him, and since he only had 3 hit points, he's going to be defeated. Now, that's actually not that bad, because if we read the last portion of his ability, at the end of the round, if Nick Fury is still in play, discard him. So he was actually going to go away anyway, but this way he prevents some damage for us, so that's nice. And then the final part, we are going to draw and resolve a card. So, hard to keep down. It's another treachery. When revealed, Rhino heals 4 damage. If no damage was healed this way, this card gains surge. So basically, we're going to heal Rhino 4 hit points. If he was already at maximum hit points, we're just going to discard this card and draw a new one. So now he's going to go up to 5 hit points. And then it's going to be our turn again. So we have Mockingbird. It's another ally. So we have 3, it costs 3, thwart 1, attack 1, 3 hit points, response. After Mockingbird enters play, stun an enemy. So we can give this stunned card to an enemy, which would prevent him from attacking, which is good. Another heroic intuition. So it says max 1 per player right there, which means that since we already have one, we actually can't play this card, so we can just ignore that. Enhanced Spider Sense. Again, I forgot to play this. We could have played this to get rid of Hard to Keep Down, but I cannot keep things in my head today, apparently. Alright, Swimming Web Kick. Alright, this is a good one. Cost 3, event, hero action, attack, deal 8 damage to an enemy. So we can discard some of those cards that don't really do much for us anymore and deal a ton of damage. Web Shooter. So it's an upgrade that costs 1. Uses 3 web counters. Enters play with 3 counters. When those counters are gone, discard this card. Hero Resource. Exhaust Web Shooter and remove 1 web counter from it. Generate a wild resource. So we get 3 use counters on it, and each turn we can exhaust it to gain 1 resource. So that's nice. Alright, so let's see. I think what I would like to do is play Swinging Web Kick. So let's see how we can do that. We can exhaust the Helicarrier to reduce the cost by 1. Then I can discard Heroic Intuition because that doesn't do anything anymore. And then enhance Spider Sense for the other resource. So now we have 3 resources paid, and now we can do 8 damage to the villain. So he has 5 hit points, and we reduce him down by 8, and now he has 0 hit points. Then we can discard his Rhino card, and now he's rank 2. So some things changed. Now he goes from having 2 attack to 3 attack, so he's going to hit harder. He goes from having 14 hit points per player to having 15 hit points per player, and he has a special ability. When revealed, search the encounter deck and discard pile for the Breaking and Taking side scheme and reveal it. Shuffle the encounter deck. So now we're going to take this card. We're going to look through the deck for that card, but first we're just going to gain. We're going to give him 15 hit points, and then after these 15 hit points are reduced to 0, we win the game. So we're close. Just a side note, we did 8 damage to him, and he only had 8 life. The extra 3 damage does not carry over to the second phase, so it is wasted, unfortunately. Alright, so now we're going to search the discard pile and deck for Breaking and Taken. Alright, and it is... Here it is. Alright. So it's a side scheme. Rhino is breaking things and taking them, which is where the name came from. When revealed, place an additional 1 per player threat here, and then has a hazard icon. Deal 1 extra encounter card during the villain phase. So as long as this card's out, we're going to draw 2 cards instead of 1 during the encounter phase. Alright, so it has 2 threats down here, plus 1 per player. So we're going to set this on the table and place 3 threat tokens on it. Unlike the main scheme right here, it does not actually... there's no passive increase of threat. So as long as a card does not tell us to put more threat there, we're never going to actually have to put more threat there, which is good. Then I'm going to shuffle up this deck, and then we can get back to playing. Alright, we're back. I have shuffled up the deck and neatened up a little bit of things. So now we're back to playing. Alright, so we have this card out here with 3 threat on it. We have some cards here, so we have a couple options. We could discard Mockingbird to play Web Shooter and save Enhanced Spider Senses to hopefully remember to use it during the villain's turn, or we could actually flip over to Peter Parker and we could use a Scientist resource, discard these 2 cards, and then play Mockingbird. Both of those would be perfectly valid. Let's see. I think I'm going to try going for Mockingbird. Usually I probably go the Web Shooter route, but let's just mix it up today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thwart with Spider-Man. So he has 1 thwart plus 1 from the Heroic Intuition. So then I'm going to exhaust him to remove 2 threat from Breaking and Taking. Then I'm going to flip over to Peter Parker, use the resource from Scientist, and discard these 2 cards to play Mockingbird. Alright, so then we get to stun an enemy. Now, the only enemy that's actually in play is Rhino, the villain, so we're going to stun Rhino. Next time he attacks, it's not going to do anything. Then, I'm going to exhaust Mockingbird to remove 1 more threat from Breaking and Taking, which now there's no threat on it, so now we can discard that. Alright, then there's a little explosion symbol there, so Mockingbird is dealt 1 damage when she does that. Alright, so now we are all done. We've done everything we can do, so now we're going to ready all of our cards, and then we're going to draw our hand size, which is 6 for Peter Parker. So now we have our 6 cards in our hand, and let's just look through these just real quick. Alright, so we have no hero interrupts. So I'm not going to be able to forget to use those, because we don't have any. Alright, first thing happens, 1 threat is going to be placed on the break-in. Then, he's going to scheme, because we are not in our hero form. He can't attack us. He's going to scheme instead. And then, we're going to discard this card. So it is Assault. There's no boost symbols down there, so just 1 is going to be placed on there. Because even though Rhino's attack was increased, his scheme value was not increased at all. So still 1. And then we're going to reveal and play this card right here. Alright, Armored Rhino Suit. Attachment. Attached to Rhino. Forced Interrupt. When any amount of damage would be dealt to Rhino, place it here instead. Then, if there is at least 5 damage here, discard Armored Rhino Suit. So, Rhino now has some armor, so the next 5 damage dealt to him will actually be placed on here instead of his, instead of reducing it on the dial. So we're just going to set that there. Alright, so that is going to conclude this second episode in our Marvel Champions playthrough. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you all have a great day. Happy gaming!